Okay, it's about time I made a video on this already. So Spamton Sweepstakes did two things. Made Mike deniers cry, and made Mike believers cry. So Mike was 100% confirmed to be a real character, but now there's conflicting evidence on who he actually is, and for some reason, despite everything, people have all collectively turned against Mike being the TV guy. All because of one tiny little name hidden in a URL. First, let's go over all the evidence supporting Tenna being TV guy. There's no name given for the person Spamton is yelling at, which is beyond confirmed to be a TV guy, but in this, the URL uses the name Tenna, which would imply that Tenna is that person. If you highlight the text at the end, it says Mike, which would imply that Mike is not the person he is yelling at. In the Spamton Q&A, when someone asks about Mike, the way he words it is like he's actually defending Mike, which would go against what we've been thinking. Spamton mentions CRTs when you talk to him about friends. He mentions Mike afterwards, which would imply that they are two different characters, but as I'll explain later, this can still work in favor of Mike. Finally, the name Tenna is short for antenna, like on the CRT television. Also, there is this strange company shown in the Spamton Sweepstakes finale named Tech Tip. I looked it up to see if it was a reference to anything, but I couldn't find anything. If you squint hard enough, you could see Tech being related to Tenna, but this doesn't really prove anything about Tenna being the TV guy. It's just something to keep in mind. Now here's all the problems with this, as well as the evidence of Mike being the TV guy. First of all, I'm not going to repeat anything I've said in past videos because that would make the video way too long. Just go watch all my other Mike Deltarune related videos if you want to know about all the past evidence of Mike. But just because new evidence drops doesn't invalidate anything we found in the past. Toby really just says that anything that isn't the games itself is not canon, which I think is a complete lie and is just to trick us from finding the truth. But anyway, the in-game lore is still more reliable than anything we find externally. First of all, we can't even be sure that Tenna is a real character. It's just a single word hidden in a URL. No mention of it anywhere else. Starting with the weakest evidence, the TV person is 100% confirmed to be male, but the name Tenna sounds more like a girl's name. I only brought this up because I saw someone who literally could not comprehend Tenna being male, and even make up ridiculous excuses, which just shows how BS the whole Tenna thing already is. The name Mike has shown up a total of 4 times. Tenna has only shown up once. It would definitely suggest that Tenna is a more hidden character, which definitely could not be the main antagonist if you were hidden. Unless he only comes into play at the very end, like King in the first chapter. If you look at the naming pattern of the chapter bosses so far, you'll see that they are very simple and don't usually give a real name. King and Queen so far. Mike has the same simple ring to that. Tenna, however, doesn't, and is more like an actual full name. Well, not a full name, because it's just one name. Just the first name or the last name. But it sounds more like an actual name, not a title. Not that Mike isn't a real name, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now for the quote-unquote contradictory Mike evidence. The only reason people have been unable to believe Mike anymore is because of their closed-minded interpretations of this new evidence. For the Q&A, when he says, "that cathode," sounds like he was referring to the same guy that was mentioned, like, that cathode. That one. The one you just mentioned. Which was Mike, and it even sounds like he's saying it in an insulting manner. One could also interpret that Mike was actually a nice guy, that was ruined by his evil crew when he says, "You all know nothing about Mike," because Spamton was the only one who knew him personally, and what he was actually like, before his gang just screwed him up. Spamton has confirmed that his glasses are not just an attempt at impersonating Swatch, but he had them before, a gift from his friend, and Swatch stole his look, which is what I've been theorizing already. This friend has to be Mike. There's nothing so far that implies that Tenna was ever a friend, so these glasses must have come from Mike. This next one is a little trickier because there's a plethora of possibilities. He could be saying that Mike won't pay because, yet again, he wasn't the real culprit. He just associated with the wrong crowd. He's not gonna punish Mike for something that wasn't his fault. He could be saying Mike won't pay because Mike is too strong for him to deal with, so he will never get him to pay. Similar to the last one, maybe he can't make him pay because he'll never give in, or he's somewhere out of Spamton's reach. Or, least likely, but still worth noting, maybe Mike is dead. The way he says it kinda sounds like someone who is no longer around. Now my favorite part, figuring out who Tenna really is. It's my belief that Tenna isn't a full character on its own, but is rather Mike's actual antenna. Mike has always given off a creepy vibe, and the fact that there's now literally a jump scare would solidify the creep factor. His multicolored eyes give this vibe of a split mind, which is carried over into Spamton. Two or more entities stuck in one body. It's strange that the two colors used are colors of good things. Yellow in Undertale is used for the traits of justice and showing you can spare an enemy. What you may have not known is if you reject Froggett's advice on yellow names, you can actually get to switch the indicator to pink names, which is the same pink that is seen in these eyes. But from what we know, only evil people have had these eyes, so not quite sure what's going on here. It could be just a trick. Something no one has been bringing up is that the Shadow Men also have a pink eye, and chances are, on the other side, they have a yellow eye as well. So, by this, it must be a symbol of their leader, who, if the glasses have been confirmed to be Mike, must be Mike. Okay, so then who is Tenna? Two possibilities. Mike's antenna have minds of their own, and have corrupted and taken over him. Or, they aren't characters at all, and Spamton is simply blaming his antenna for everything that happened. Tenna does kind of sound like a plural of antenna, for some reason. And it makes sense, because antenna give connection to outside forces, and perhaps are what gave him contact to Gaster in the first place, which is obviously what screwed him up. If there's any doubt left, take this line from Ode to Spamton. I'll kill my TV for its horrible crimes. And guess who's officially been called out as a criminal by Spamton? Mike, not Tenna. Ode to Spamton was likely not written by Spamton himself, but just his cult-like followers, and from their perspective, Mike is only the guy that wronged Spamton, hence why they want to kill him so much. Spamton himself probably doesn't share those same feelings, and probably still wishes that Mike could be his friend. Everyone denied Mike because it's quote-unquote too predictable for Toby, when in reality, it not being Mike is even more predictable. But you know what would be very unpredictable? If Mike and Tenna were one and the same, without just being two names for the same guy. Because I've heard a lot of people that are just saying that Tenna is the second name of Mike, Mike Tenna. And that is still possible. But in this idea where his antenna are these separate entities living in the same body, makes everything so much more interesting. But what really makes me mad about this whole thing is how needlessly toxic people are about it. People have hated Mike Deltarune for no reason since the beginning, and have only gotten worse, and have only gotten more toxic as time went on. I seriously do not get it. Reddit has this the worst because Reddit is already a cesspool of people thinking they're superior to others just because of their hot takes. But it's been all over the place. Faulty arguments about how Spamton himself is wrong just because he's crazy. It's ridiculous. Argue and debate about it as much as you want, but at least be civil about it. And logical. Make sure to comment your own interpretations as well, if you have any creative ones, and if you're not going to be toxic about it. Also, be sure to tell me if I missed any important information. That's all I have to say today. Hopefully this nonsense will finally be put to a stop, but probably not, since me confirming that Mystery Man was gassed, or it didn't seem to impact the fandom at all.